March of 2013. This was the moment that we realized the DA show was kind of a flame to the very weirdest moths out there at night. We were just attracting the most bizarre phone calls ever when we were doing the overnight show, and nothing encapsulated that more than a guy that called up that we nicknamed Painkiller Pat. Note, you will hear just a couple of minutes of the insanity of Painkiller Pat. Mind you, this is overnight, March 2013, just 3 months into our journey here on CBS Sports Radio. This actual phone call went for nearly 15 minutes. It was 14 minutes and change of this guy ranting.
Because you never lived in Detroit, but I did.
I'm not criticizing living in Detroit, Pat. Where did you get this?
Everybody does. Oh, Brandon Knight, the crossover that broke his knees. Oh my God, like Ray Allen, I don't even know.
Do you hold down a job?
Heck, I don't even have a job, Damien.
Let's get this back on track. So you're unemployed.
Listen, Damien, I told you I've got some rough times.
No, I can see. Tonight is one of those rough times.
I'm looking for a job.
Okay, now what do you do, Howard? What are you qualified in?
I do anything and everything, Damien. I got a strong back and a loud mouth. So give me some ammo. You just go against Detroit. And you guys always do. You nitpick me, and you take my feathers, and you try to pick at Michael, but it'll never work because Michael's above all you.
Who's Michael?
Right.
Who's Michael?
Oh, from the Bible, Michael? You ever heard of Michael, the archangel?
I didn't know that we were referencing the Bible here.
This isn't your little fantasy that you can run into. No, this is all fixed. Sports is not what it used to be until Houston. When Houston lost that game, give me a break. Like they could have lost that game.
Which Houston loss?
Houston versus North Carolina State. Give me a break. So I watched that game.
We're going back to 83 now. 83.
83, I think that's when the whole
30 years ago.
How many beers ago? Probably 1,000.
No. 30 years ago.
30 years ago, yes. They should have never lost that game. What did you do to my sports, brother? You killed my sports.
You got to rein it in, brother. You got to rein it in because you are coming off as a complete psychopath.
I can't even watch a sporting event without being fixed.
Okay,
Who
all right.
can watch sports like that?
Okay. Look, Pat, I appreciate you calling in, but you got to rein it. You got to go to bed, brother. All right?
Thank you, brother. Okay. You have a great show, Damon.
That was Pat in Arizona. That went on for about 14 minutes. The entire call is available on YouTube. It is total insanity. And that really opened up the floodgates, Mraz, of total weirdos.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to going, oh, this show's going to be a little different, isn't it?
And you guys saw I didn't want him off the line. I wanted him on the line. It was like I had hooked a marlin. That was my biggest fish. I was just pulling it in for about 15 minutes.
That was the first time I realized 3 months in or 2 months in, hey, bosses had told me they only want callers on 2 minutes, let's say. And I got you on this guy with 13 minutes. I was having a panic attack. I'm a young producer. Am I going to get fired for this? Then I realized, you know what? This is good radio. Let's go with the flow.
We're coming to you live from the Quicken Loan Studios. National mortgage lender, Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. That first year as well in the overnights, Mraz had indigestion. By the way, Painkiller Pat was on that crazy DeAndre Jordan, was it DeAndre Jordan dunk over Brandon Knight, I believe, which we were discussing ad nauseum. Was it the greatest dunk of all time? And it happened against the Pistons. It was Clippers against the Pistons. But Mraz had indigestion. So what was Mraz's solution to indigestion?
But the key is, what did you try to wash it down with?
Well, once I almost thought maybe I was a little too hungry. I washed it down with a strawberry Pop-Tart.
I mean, people might think this is radio shtick. It is not radio shtick.
This is real.
This is Mraz's
This is reality
diet.
radio.
That's it. I just want to ask Mraz, if you're having heart palpitations, indigestion, you feel it's coming up after eating chicken and broccoli, pork fried rice, and other Chinese food, who on earth believes the best remedy would be eating a strawberry Pop-Tart to wash it down?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to this, DA. Sometimes when you eat Chinese food, you get like a hurtful feeling in your stomach where you feel like you're hungry again a couple minutes after. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
You think that this is just Chinese food for you?
Yeah, it's something with the Chinese food. So I thought I was having that, but it was like a little more to it. And I said, you know what? Something isn't feeling right. Maybe it's all that salt. I just felt like maybe I went through my bag of tricks I have here. There was a bag of Pop-Tarts. I said, let me just get a Pop-Tart down. Maybe it's a hunger pain, and I won't add the salt to it. But adding that to that, really, it was awful.
You're kidding. Adding a strawberry iced Pop-Tart to a Chinese food-laden indigestion made it feel worse?
Yes, it made it feel worse. I thought this would solve maybe it was just a hunger pain. I thought that was going to solve it.
First of all, you just ate a meal. You don't get hunger pains after eating a meal. Hunger pains, by definition, is a pain in your stomach from not eating, Mraz.
Well, no. I think with Chinese food, though, there's something about the Chinese food that you're hungry a little while after eating it.
Okay, but so you thought you would counteract being hungry after a meal with a Pop-Tart?
Yes. I mean, that was just what I had.
We are off and running. Mraz, your bag of tricks after eating a full Chinese meal was a Pop-Tart.
Which makes us realize how fat I am in 2018, how much fatter I was in 2013.
Your logic, though, still remains.
Well, it was the first time I experienced indigestion in my life. By the way, haven't experienced it since.
Come on.
I swear, that was the only time in my life I've experienced indigestion, and I thought I was getting the old, I'm still hungry, that Chinese food MSG clearing out thing. I wasn't still hungry. I went to Pop-Tart.
It's never serious. It's always nonsensical. It's always completely ridiculous. But there is always a controversy of some sort. And indeed, Mraz, there was paperwork filed trying to void the original Wiener Ship Challenge.
So I was the champion of the original Wiener Ship, and at the end, I had accidentally spit up maybe a fragment of a hot dog.
More than a fragment. It was like half a hot dog.
And Pete, who was facing me at the time, filed the paperwork and the motion to say, I need to keep everything down or it's a complete disqualification. And we actually had to have 2 Wiener Ships in 2 weeks. Which is, I mean, talk about a stretch.
Again, when you listen back to the original couple of years, it was a miracle they ever kept us on the air. But I always think that the bosses just weren't listening. And they were just happy that we were on the air. We weren't knocked off the air, that we actually had some type of content in the middle of the night, in the middle of the overnights. And I think what ended up happening was listeners started really becoming gravitated towards the show. They liked how weird it was, how crazy it was. And they started, I think, telling the affiliates how much they liked it. And our bosses kept hearing from the affiliates, yeah, everything sounds great. We're happy with the network. But that overnight show, our listeners keep talking about the overnight. What's going on? And I think our bosses kept going, I don't really know. We don't really know what's going on at the overnight show. Our first viral moment was later that summer in year number 1, when Mraz finally had it hit him that his hero, Derek Jeter, was about to retire. Mraz starts crying on the air. We posted this audio online, and it spread like wildfire across the entire sports radio landscape. Other stations were playing the audio. TV stations were playing the audio. We had to give it clearance to a bunch of different outlets. And after this, Mraz actually ended up doing a media tour for radio stations.
It was it, man. It was like stepping on an ant dying on your shoe. It was over.
You had stepped on the ant.
I had stepped on the ant. That ant, it was gone. I mean, I know Derek Jeter's not dying, but if you're a Yankee fan, a piece of you dies with this week. We laugh about it, and I thought about it all week, and now it's the week's here, and it's sad. It really is. It's just, and Thursday night's going to be even rougher. It's just sitting on the couch with my dad as a kid. rooftop, Kenny. Those are your first memories of staying up late is watching, Jeter get the big hits and Mr. November and, winning the World Series. And it's just, they're never going to have that again. That, 3 champ,
You're breaking up in there.
When you just reminisce and you think about all the glory years, it's over. It's all over.
When
Mo went, and that's it. Jeter gone. Hey, man, it's a legend. You don't see legends come around in your lifetime often, and we have one here in New York, and he's not coming back.
He's not dead.
No, he'll be there, but his career's dead.
Did you think you were going to be this emotional?
You never think about the emotion. You just let emotion happen. And if I could pass that along to anybody underneath me, you just never think about emotion. Emotion's going to happen. And it's only going to be worse the next couple nights.
Do you think you're going to cry on Thursday?
Yeah. If you're a Yankee fan, I don't know how you don't.
You think you're going to cry on Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday about 4 o'clock, that's it, right?
It's over.
It's going to hurt in February, too, when he doesn't come back to Tampa.
Mraz, you're still welling up.
I can't believe I'm still getting wet eyes over it. It is true. You look back, it was about the passage of time. That's what crushed me more than anything. I just saw my whole life flash before my eyes with Jeter's career.
Because that last homestand, you went out to a game.
Yeah, I went to cover Jeter's last press conference, and I knew walking out of the stadium that was the last time I was ever going to see him, and it brought me back to being a young child and knowing all the memories I had with my father, and it was like, oh my God, life really passes you by. Boy, that hit me, man.
It was amazing because I knew you were emotional, and I said to Brock during the commercial break, Brock, get My Way by Sinatra, and let's play this softly under Mraz, and I will try to hook him in to going through how he feels. And sure enough, it starts bubbling over for Mraz, and that's where Brock, like a maestro, starts jumping up the audio levels, really putting it in his ear to really get the tears out. And that clip ended up going viral. And how many radio interviews did you do after that of radio producers booking you going, yeah, we got to talk to the crying guy?
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, it was the next morning. I was sleeping because we were doing the overnights, and my father came down to my apartment and was slamming on the window to wake me up because I was sleeping with earplugs and everything, going, you got radio stations all over talking about you. It's everywhere. It's online. You got to wake up, Sean. I'm like, what? I woke up. I go, what are you talking about? Forgetting, and I had cried about Derek Jeter. Next thing I know, I had emails flooded into my inbox looking for permission and looking to see if I would speak to their shows. And I ended up later that afternoon and then into the next morning doing a mini car wash. I was on, Opie and Anthony at the time were still around. I was on with them.
You were on WFAN.
WFAN, various stations like San Diego had called me. Everybody wanted my spin on the Jeter retirement. And here I am at 26 years old doing a car wash. Like I'm Dabo at ESPN after ACC Media Days.
Oh, my God. Me and Brock could not stop laughing. We were just howling. You can't hear it because we had turned our microphones off, but we are howling in laughter. And there is a picture online because we posted the whole viral clip, obviously, on YouTube. There's a picture online of Mraz, red-faced pink, wiping tears from his eyes, all glassy, and me howling with laughter behind him. And Brock took that photo. And our sides hurt. I mean, we were clowning Mraz so badly all morning long. It was so much fun. And then wouldn't you know it, the way Mraz's career is gone, that's the thing that goes viral. That's the thing. That's the thing.
I still get asked about it to this day if I'm out at a bar in my town and somebody went to high school. I can't believe you cried over Jeter, dude. Like, I haven't seen anybody in that long. And it's like, wow, we're still talking about this?
We are celebrating the DA Show's 5-year anniversary on CBS Sports Radio.
For your winner, David, excuse me, my bad, Elijah Young Snipes Terrell. My bad, I called it wrong. My bad. I got the scores right. I got the winner wrong. My bad, my friend. I'm sorry. David, the Coffee Boss Booker.
Let the experience wash over you.
5 years of the DA show, which we're celebrating today. Thanks so much, everybody, for making us part of your morning each and every morning. And for those of you that go back to the overnight days, truly a huge debt of gratitude for those that have joined in midway at some point in time during the 5 years. Love you as well. Thanks so much for kind of floating us here on CBS Sports Radio, because we keep getting these promotions in time slots because we keep hearing from affiliates that listeners enjoy the show, so we would not be here without you guys. Let's go back to year number 1 of the overnights and another moment where we went viral. The 12 days of Christmas had become a big deal. Who was going to make the 12 days of Christmas? And this is something I've done even prior to CBS Sports Radio, back during our Boston days as well at 98.5, the Sports Hub. But the listeners really desperately wanted in their own share of the 12 days of Christmas. And we had a guy by the name of Will in Baltimore who would call us regularly on the overnights because he was working as a cashier at a 7-Eleven in Baltimore. He wanted on the 12 days of Christmas so bad. He wanted to be one of the famous moments in DA shows the that year, that he decided to fake a robbery of his 7-Eleven to become part of the 12 days of Christmas, which, as you might imagine, led to the greatest controversy in DA show history.
Hey, what's up, DA? How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm 33. I work the graveyard shift at 7-Eleven, and the Orioles are down 3-0 in the ALCS, but I'd be much better if you could bring me up to the mothership. Damon Amendolara. Nothing rhymes with Amendolara. I even went as far as to Google search a capybara. Hey, DA, let me call you back, man. I'm being robbed.
Okay.
What really happened is I live and die for the 12 days of Christmas. And I don't have the personality of Painkiller Pat, and no one's ever poured urine on my head.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to create the most memorable call I could, and that's the first thing that came up into my mind. And I apologize to everyone that I hurt in the process.
So the whole thing has been made up.
Well, it wasn't made up. I mean, you know, when Arnold Schwarzenegger tells people he's the Terminator, I mean, it's not made up. I mean, he's acting.
No, but you didn't get robbed.
Paul Mero got in front of the Congress and said that he never took PEDs. I mean,
You did not get robbed, did you, Will?
Well, not in that instant, no, DA.
Not in that instant.
No.
So nobody was trying to steal Slurpees, and there was no 9 stuck in your face.
No, that never happened, DA. And I really apologize for wasting everyone's time, and I throw myself at the mercy of the DA universe, and if you guys don't want me to call anymore, I'll just fade into Bolivian. Or, I mean, I'm just suggesting maybe like a 10-show ban or something like that.
Okay, all right. We had to end up having a Jedi Council meeting, and we allowed also the popular vote from our listeners what to do with Will in Baltimore, since he faked it. And you have to remember, we didn't know this was a fake. We didn't know this was a fraud for days. We had scoured the papers around Baltimore for the police blotter for an incident of a holdup at a convenience store. We couldn't find one. This clip went viral. It was everywhere on the internet. And so then other places started doing research. In fact, the Baltimore Sun looked into it and couldn't find the report of any cops that were called or any stick-up that happened at a convenience store in greater Baltimore that night. And so we started thinking, maybe this was a ruse. Maybe this was a fake. And we talked about it incessantly. Remember, we tried to call back Will in Baltimore, and he quickly hung up the phone and said, I can't talk right now. The cops are here.
It was almost like the TV show Catfish. You were just trying to get to the bottom of it. Is Will in Baltimore even real?
And then we tried to call him back the next day. He didn't answer. And we were totally in the dark, wondering, was this real or not? Days later was what you just heard. Will in Baltimore copped to it. And then we had the Jedi Council. Does this qualify as a 12 DA of Christmas? And I believe the ultimate decision was It qualifies because it's one of the most memorable moments, but he would then have to be suspended for 60 days.
I don't believe that was the decision, and I'll tell you why. Because when I went back to comb through, and this just shows you how ridiculous this whole thing is, we can't remember the decision. It was not in our 12 DAs from that year. I have 1 through 12 labeled, which means we eliminated, which tells me we probably played it back as it could have been a play-in game.
So it was
deal.
DQ'd.
It was DQ'd. Like, we might have still played it, but just not as a 12 DA, if that makes any sense.
It was DQ'd because it was created, it was fabricated. That's right. It was DQ'd, and we had to give him a 60-day suspension.
And ironically, the 60 days led into, at the time when we gave the suspension, we didn't know this, led into us leaving overnights for 6 to 10 Eastern, 3 to 7 Pacific, meaning we lost Will when he was up in the middle of the night. So when his suspension ended, we were no longer on in that time, and we've never heard from Will since.
Will in Baltimore has never called back since that fateful day when we found out that he had faked us. And so if you search the DA show and CBS Sports Radio, there's 2 things that probably come up first. Mraz crying over Derek Jeter, and 7-Eleven clerk gets robbed on air. One of which is a joke, the other which is a joke, which is perfect. Let's get to Art Garfunkel here, okay? Because Art Garfunkel was one of these bookings that I came in the morning and said, we have Art Garfunkel on the air? And Mraz said, yeah, you usually like talking to guys like this, right? This was a Friday during football season. And you said, you like talking to musicians. And I said, yeah, no, I do. But it's a football Friday. Are we going to have Art Garfunkel on? How we even got him on is the biggest lark also because he was promoting a memoir. And why do they reach out to a sports radio show? Because they reached out to us.
My guess is they didn't have a lot of takers for the Art Garfunkel memoir. And when I read it, I'll be honest, I didn't have a football guest booked. And you know me, if I come in at the end, I said, Art Garfunkel, all right, we're the DA show. Let's have Art Garfunkel on.
Free guest.
Free guest.
Free guest. We had Art on, and my idea was I'm not just going to ask him about the traditional Art Garfunkel questions about Simon and Garfunkel. Let me try to engage him. And I'd read a few articles about him, and he had been a mathematician growing up and had used math to really songwrite. And I thought, okay, I'll go down this road. He'll like talking about his background and what have you. He did not. It spiraled out of control. And Art Garfunkel became one of the most memorable moments in DA show history. He's an author, he is a poet, he's a teacher, and he has written a new memoir called What Is It All But Luminous? Notes from an Underground Man. Art Garfunkel is our next guest here on CBS Sports Radio. Art, how are you doing?
Now, Damon, I can hear you, but only distantly, so something's not quite right about the connection. I'm very anxious to say hello to you, but you are very small from a large distance.
Well,
can we correct the patch in?
Sure. Let's put you back on hold. I think you probably, in the way that he signed off, he hung up on me as well. Pete the Body Bilotti, that was probably your first introduction to a really, truly awkward yet historic moment on the DA show.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever been involved in something really epic for the program. I'm still, like, some of that stuff that we were listening to, I forgot about it. But it's just, it gives me the willies.
Gives him the willies.
Come on.
It's funny, that is still something I'm asked about, and I think forever will be. Remember that time you interviewed Art Garfunkel? When people introduce me at, like, speaking engagements, somehow this always comes up. Remember the Art Garfunkel interview? Yes, I remember that he cursed at me and hung up the phone. And I was not angling to make him mad, which was the crazy part. I was angling specifically to be endearing, to be comfortable, to make him feel comfortable. And the thing exploded in my face.
Didn't want to answer math questions.
So Art Garfunkel currently resides on the no-call list, the enemies list of the DA show. Let's go over the full list. These are the guests that have screwed us over or disrespected us and thus will never be called on ever again. Number 1, as you heard, Art Garfunkel. Number 2, MLB writer, longtime baseball scribe Richard Justice. who was on hold for no more than 30 seconds one time, and I was resetting the basketball story of the day. It was during the NBA Finals, and Justice hung up on us. We tried to call him back, Joltin' Joe D did, and he refused to come on the air. This week, I am trashing Richard Justice, who bailed on us last week after we had promoted him coming on the show. Richard Justice, MLB.com. is going to join us coming up here 1 hour from now because I took too long getting to him in the introduction as he was on hold. No justice for Richard Justice.
What a debacle.
No justice for Richard Justice became the rallying cry. He said, I'm not supposed to wait for anybody. If you're going to talk basketball, talk basketball. I was booked at this time. I said, it's 30 seconds, man. And you're baseball. You got to realize it's baseball during the NBA Finals. Bobby Valentine also on the enemies list.
Sacred Heart, I know you want a name. And I know you feel like maybe with a name you can draw some attention to your athletic program. But Bobby Valentine was disinterested, bored, and out to lunch managing a Major League Baseball team last year. Do you think he's really going to care about handling an athletic department at Sacred Heart?
Now that I know the answer, yeah.
Yeah, Bob, did you do the scheduling for the trip to Hartford for the women's lacrosse program?
What?
So I trashed Bobby V. Sacred Heart got a hold of it. Sacred Heart tried to get in our kitchen, tried to get us in trouble with the bosses. So we said, we will book Bobby V back on the show, right, Mraz? And you tried to reach out to him, and you had him booked so that he could defend his position at Sacred Heart.
Well, and not only that, we were going to take Mike Piazza to the Hall of Fame as well, and then it just fell apart.
He blew us off once after he was booked, and we had promoted it all show long. You rebooked him. He said, sorry, I didn't have my phone on. We rebooked him. He blew us off again. So not only did his employer try to get us in trouble with the bosses, but he not only agreed once, but twice to come on the air and blew us off both times.
Get him out.
Get him out. Also on the no-call list is Joey Chestnut, because we had him booked here on the show to eat hot dogs. And as you've heard before, he has refused to eat hot dogs. We'll play that audio coming up later on. And Jack K is also the 1980s B-list star from 227. She is also on the no-call list because I once referred to her as a C-list star, and her fan base on Twitter exploded at me. I mean, absolutely ate me up. And so from here on out, those are the enemies list. I'm going to read coming up at the top of the hour how vicious the Jack K fan club got on me. But that is your no-call list. That's the DA Show's enemy list forever. Bobby V, Joey Chestnut, Richard Justice, and Jack K. It's an eclectic crew. But here on the DA Show, it couldn't be anything else.